The stars had always watched Earth. For 300 years, the Dominion had sent small ships to study the blue planet and its strange creatures. They wrote reports about humans. They took pictures. They measured and counted and judged. And in the end, they decided that humans were nothing special, just another primitive species on a small world waiting to be conquered. High Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory. He was tall, even for his gray skin was smooth, and his 4 eyes looked at Earth with something close to boredom. He had done this 47 times before. 47 planets. 47 species that thought they were special. 47 easy victories. "Begin the standard greeting," said to his communications officer. The message was simple. Surrender your world. Accept rule. Your people will serve the Dominion. Resist and you will be destroyed. The message went out in every human language. It played on every screen, every radio, every device on Earth. Expected fear. He expected panic. He expected what always came next, desperate leaders calling to negotiate, to beg, to offer anything for survival. He did not expect silence. On Earth, in a military base deep underground, Lieutenant Colonel Park read the alien message 3 times. He was 42 years old, with gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands from wars most people had forgotten. He had commanded soldiers in jungles, deserts, and frozen mountains. He had seen enemies that seemed impossible to defeat. But aliens, real aliens demanding Earth's surrender. Picked up his phone and called the one person who needed to know first. General answered on the second ring. She was 61 years old and had spent her entire life in the military. She was the first woman to lead Earth's Unified Defense Council, and she had earned that position through 40 years of service. "You've seen the message," said. It was not a question. "I have," replied. Her voice was calm, like she was discussing the weather. "What is your assessment, Colonel?" Looked at the data on his screen. The alien fleet was massive, over 200 ships orbiting Earth. Their technology was far beyond anything humans had built. Their weapons could destroy cities in seconds. By any logical measure, humanity had no chance. "They expect us to surrender," said. "They've done this before, many times. They have protocols, procedures. They think they know exactly what will happen next." "And what will happen next?" asked. Smiled, though there was no humor in it. "Whatever they don't expect." Within 1 hour, General had contacted every major government on Earth. The United Nations held an emergency meeting. Leaders argued. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Some wanted to launch nuclear weapons. Some wanted to hide and hope the aliens would leave. Listened to all of them, then she spoke. "They have studied us for centuries," she said. "They think they understand us. They believe we are predictable. That is their weakness." She explained the plan. It was simple, dangerous, and completely insane, but it was also the only chance humanity had. Earth would go silent. No transmissions, no negotiations, no response of any kind. The aliens expected fear and chaos. Instead, they would receive nothing but quiet. Meanwhile, every nation would prepare, not for surrender, not for negotiation, but for war. The plan was called Omega Protocol. It had been created 50 years ago by military strategists who wondered what humanity would do if aliens ever arrived. Most people thought it was a joke, a waste of time. Now it was the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. In orbit, High Commander waited. 1 hour passed, then 2, then 6, still nothing from the planet below. His second officer, a young named, approached nervously. "High Commander, the humans are not responding. Our protocols say." "I know what the protocols say," interrupted. "The protocols say primitive species always respond within the first hour. They panic. They fight among themselves. They send desperate messages begging for mercy." "Perhaps their communication systems are damaged," suggested. Shook his head. "Their systems are functioning perfectly. We can detect their internal communications. They are talking to each other constantly. Then why won't they talk to us? Did not have an answer. In 47 conquests, he had never seen anything like this. Every species reacted the same way. Fear, anger, desperate hope, these were universal. But silence, complete, deliberate silence. It was unsettling. On Earth, the preparations continued. Soldiers moved in complete radio silence, using old methods to communicate, written messages, hand signals, runners carrying orders on foot. Factories worked through the night, building weapons that had been designed for this moment but never tested. Lieutenant Colonel stood in his command center, watching reports come in from around the world. Asia, Europe, Africa, the Americas, every continent was preparing. Old enemies worked together. Nations that had fought wars against each other now shared weapons and soldiers. For the first time in human history, Earth was truly united, not by hope or love or shared dreams, but by something far more powerful. Survival. Thought about his children, his wife, his parents. He thought about the small apartment in Seoul where he had grown up. He thought about baseball games and summer rain and the smell of his grandmother's cooking. These aliens wanted to take all of that away. They wanted to turn humanity into slaves. They had done it to 47 other species. They thought humans would be number 48. They were wrong. General appeared on his screen. She looked tired but determined. "The preparations are complete," she said. "Every nation has reported in. We're ready." "Ready for what?" asked. Smiled. It was a cold smile, the smile of a predator. Ready to show them what happens when you corner a human. 72 hours after the alien message, the fleet remained in orbit waiting. Their sensors detected chaos on Earth, riots in cities, governments falling, militaries fighting each other. It was exactly what they expected. They did not know that all of it was fake. The riots were staged. The chaos was manufactured. The fighting was carefully planned theater, broadcast specifically for alien sensors. In reality, humanity was calm, focused, ready. And when they finally decided to land their invasion force, they would discover a terrible truth. They had not come to conquer a primitive world. They had walked into a trap. Deep beneath the mountains of Korea, there was a bunker that did not exist on any map. It had been built during the Cold Wars of the 20th century, expanded during the conflicts of the 21st, and upgraded every decade since. The walls were 10 meters thick. The power came from underground generators. The air was filtered and recycled. This was the heart of Omega Protocol, and Captain Lee was its brain. Was 29 years old, young for her rank. She had graduated at the top of her class in military academy. She spoke 6 languages. She had degrees in physics, computer science, and strategic warfare. But more importantly, she saw patterns where others saw chaos. For the past 70 hours, she had not slept. Instead, she had studied every piece of data about that humanity had gathered. Their ships, their weapons, their tactics, their history. And she had found something wonderful. "They're predictable," she told the room full of commanders. Her voice was hoarse from lack of sleep, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "Look at this." She pulled up holographic displays showing patrol patterns. Their ships follow the exact same routes every 40 minutes. The exact same routes. They never change. Sergeant Major leaned forward in his chair. He was 53 years old, with a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He had served in special forces for 30 years. He had killed more enemies than he could remember, and he had never lost a fight. "Why would they do that?" he asked. "Any soldier knows you change your patterns." "Because they've never had to," explained. "They've conquered 47 worlds. Every single time the enemy was too weak to fight back. They've never faced real resistance. They don't know what it looks like." She changed the display to show shield technology. Their shields pulse at regular intervals too. Every 12 seconds there's a gap, just half a second, but it's there. General studied the data carefully. Can we exploit it? Yes, said, but we need to time everything perfectly. One mistake and they'll realize what we're doing. Private First Class sat in the corner of the room, monitoring communications. She was 22 years old, fresh out of training. She had joined the military because she wanted to help people, to protect her country. She never imagined she would be fighting aliens. But as she listened to the alien transmissions, an idea formed in her mind. Captain Lee, she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. I've been listening to what they are saying about us. They think we're primitive. They think we can't coordinate. So, asked impatiently. Stood up, her nervousness obvious but her voice steady. So we give them what they expect. We make them think we're falling apart. We broadcast fake chaos, fake riots, fake government collapses, make them think humanity is destroying itself. The room was silent for a moment, then smiled. That's brilliant, she said. If they think we're in chaos, they won't suspect an organized attack. They'll land their forces expecting frightened civilians, broken armies, easy targets. General nodded slowly. Begin immediately. I want every broadcast we send to show exactly what they expect to see: panic, division, collapse. Over the next 24 hours, Earth put on the greatest performance in human history. News broadcasts showed cities burning, but the fires were controlled. The victims were actors. Government leaders gave desperate speeches about surrender, but the speeches were fake, written to sound exactly like what the aliens expected. Social media exploded with posts about the end of the world. People fought in the streets over food and water. Militaries collapsed and soldiers deserted. All of it was fake. Every single moment was planned. In orbit, they watched and believed everything they saw. The humans are destroying themselves, reported to High Commander. Our projections were accurate. Primitive species always react this way to superior force. Felt a small moment of satisfaction. Prepare the landing force. Target the major population centers. We will begin pacification within 12 hours. But in the bunker beneath Korea, the real preparations were. Sergeant Major briefed his Special Forces teams. The aliens are tall, strong, well-armed, but they've never fought humans. They don't know what we're capable of. He pulled up images of soldiers. They were impressive, 2.5 meters tall, 4 arms, each one equipped with advanced weapons. They have better technology, continued. Better weapons, better armor, but they have one weakness. He tapped his chest. They're afraid to die. Every report we have says the same thing. The value self-preservation above everything. They don't take risks. They don't sacrifice themselves. He smiled grimly. Humans do. In another part of the bunker, Captain finalized the attack plans. Every city on Earth had been assigned roles. Some would be surrendered to draw in forces. Others would be hidden strike points. Still others would be evacuation zones for civilians. The plan was complicated. Thousands of moving parts. Millions of people coordinating without using any communication that could detect. Had given the plan a name, Operation Silence. Private worked constantly, fine-tuning the fake broadcasts. She studied psychology, trying to understand what they wanted to believe. She learned that they saw themselves as superior beings bringing order to chaos. They thought they were helping primitive species by conquering them. They think they're the good guys, realized. They actually believe they're doing us a favor. She used this knowledge. The fake broadcasts showed humans welcoming the protesters, carrying signs saying surrender was the only option. Religious leaders preaching acceptance of the new masters. They ate it up. They believed every word. 20 hours after the alien message, intercepted a transmission that made her blood run cold. High Commander, a officer reported, our forces are ready. Landing will begin in 16 hours. Primary target, the human city called Seoul. Immediately reported to Captain. Seoul said quietly, Why Seoul? They analyzed the data. Seoul was a major population center. It was also showing some of the worst chaos in the fake broadcasts. They believed it would be an easy target, millions of frightened humans ready to submit. General made the decision immediately. We make Seoul our killing ground, let them land there, and when they do, we show them what humans really are. Began reorganizing the defense plans. The best soldiers would be positioned in Seoul. The most advanced weapons would be hidden in buildings and subway tunnels. The city would look helpless and broken. But it would be a fortress. Sergeant Major personally selected the units that would defend Seoul. He chose men and women who had faced impossible odds before, soldiers who had survived when survival seemed impossible. When they land, he told his troops, they will expect us to run. They will expect us to hide. They will expect us to beg. He loaded his weapon with slow, deliberate movements. We will do none of those things. We will attack. We will keep attacking until they are dead or we are. And if we die, we will make sure they remember us. The soldiers listened in silence. They were afraid. They would be fools not to be afraid. But fear was not the same as weakness. Fear could be a weapon too. In the command center, General watched the preparations with quiet pride. Humanity had spent its entire history fighting itself. Wars had killed hundreds of millions. Conflict was in human blood. Now, for the first time, all that aggression had a single target. The thought they were coming to conquer a broken world. They were wrong. They were walking into the most dangerous trap in galactic history. They descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. There were 50 of them heading towards Seoul alone. Each one carried 200 soldiers, 10,000 aliens ready to pacify what they believed was a broken city. Flight leader watched them come. He sat in the cockpit of his fighter jet, hidden in a mountain hangar 50 kilometers from Seoul. His squadron, the Black Eagles, was the best in Asia. 12 pilots who had trained together for 10 years. 12 pilots who had never faced an enemy they couldn't defeat. Today would be different. Today they would face technology centuries ahead of their own. Did not care. His great-grandmother had flown fighters in wars before he was born. His grandmother had served in the Air Force. His mother had died in a training accident when was 10 years old. Flying was in his blood. So was fighting. All wings, he said into his radio, launch in 30 seconds. They continued their descent, confident and slow. Their sensors showed no threat. Their shields were activated but at minimum power. Why waste energy on a planet that couldn't fight back? Fighters launched like arrows from the mountain. 12 jets screaming through the sky at impossible speeds. The first ship exploded before its pilot even knew they were under attack. Had ordered his squadron to fire electromagnetic pulse missiles first. The weapons were experimental, built specifically for this moment. They didn't destroy ships, they blinded them. Sensors went dark. Navigation failed. Shields flickered. In the chaos, the Black Eagles struck again and again. 3 more fell, then 5, then 8. The commanders screamed for their pilots to respond. But the human jets were too fast, too unpredictable. They didn't fly in formations. They didn't follow patterns. Each pilot made their own decisions, adapting moment by moment. It was chaos, beautiful, deadly chaos. But they still had superior numbers and technology. They recovered from their shock and began fighting back. Plasma weapons lit up the sky. 2 human jets exploded instantly. Watched his pilots die and felt something cold settle in his chest. Not grief. There would be time for grief later. Right now, he felt only determination. All wings switched to close attack, he ordered. Get inside their shield range. It was suicide. Flying that close to weapons meant almost certain death, but it was also the only way to hurt them. The remaining Black Eagles dove toward the alien ships. They fired everything they had, missiles, cannons, even ramming damaged ships when their weapons ran out. By the time the surviving reached Seoul, only 4 human jets remained, but 26 alien ships had been destroyed. On the ground, Master Sergeant Im heard the explosions above and smiled. She was 40 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death. She had joined the army at 18 to escape poverty. She had stayed because she was good at only one thing: fighting. Her squad was positioned in a collapsed building near Seoul's Central Plaza. The building was supposed to look abandoned, destroyed in the riots. In reality, it was a fortress: hidden weapons, armored positions, escape tunnels. Watched through her scope as the first soldiers emerged from there. They were massive, over 2 meters tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. Each arm held a different weapon. They moved with confidence, spreading out to secure the landing zone. Counted them: 100, 200, 500. She waited. More ships landed, more soldiers emerged. 1,000 aliens now filled the plaza. Still waited. An officer raised some kind of communication device. He was probably calling for the human leaders to surrender. He stood in the open, completely unafraid. Pulled the trigger. The alien officer's head exploded. For a moment, everyone in the plaza froze. Then hell broke loose. Hidden weapons opened fire from every direction. Buildings that seemed empty became killing zones. Streets that appeared abandoned were full of soldiers. They found themselves surrounded, exposed, dying. Corporal Shin Minyu was 22 years old. He had joined the army because his father and grandfather had served. He had never killed anyone before. Today, he killed 17. He fired until his rifle overheated. He threw grenades until he had none left. When a soldier cornered him in an alley, Minyu attacked with his combat knife. The alien was twice his size. It had 4 arms. It had armor. Minyu didn't care. He screamed as he charged, a sound that had nothing human in it. They hesitated, just for a moment, confused by the small creature attacking instead of running. That hesitation cost it everything. Minyu found the gap in its armor, the soft spot at the neck. His knife went in. The alien went down. Minyu stood over the body, covered in alien blood, shaking with fear and rage and something that felt almost like joy. He was alive, the alien was dead. That was all that mattered. Throughout Seoul, similar scenes played out. Humans ambushed aliens in subway tunnels. They dropped bombs from civilian drones. They used cars as weapons, buildings as traps, anything and everything as ways to kill. They had expected frightened primitives. Instead, they found an enemy that refused to stop fighting. Sergeant Major led his Special Forces team through the Northern District. They moved like ghosts, striking and disappearing before the aliens could respond. "Remember," told his soldiers, "they don't understand sacrifice. They don't understand why anyone would die for something bigger than themselves." He proved his point by charging a position alone, drawing fire while his team flanked from behind. A plasma bolt hit his arm, burning through flesh to bone. Didn't stop. He kept firing, kept moving, kept fighting. The position fell. His team lost 2 soldiers. Worth it. Private watched the battle unfold from the command center, coordinating communications. She heard the screams, the explosions, the desperate calls for help. She tracked every unit, every casualty, every small victory and terrible loss. "Northern District secured," a voice reported. "Eastern flank is falling back. We need support." "This is Eagle 7, I'm hit. I'm going down." Worked through it all, her voice steady even when her hands shook. She was the thread connecting thousands of soldiers, the calm center of the storm. Captain stood beside General, watching the tactical display. Red dots represented forces. Green dots were human. At the start of the battle, the red had overwhelmed the green. Now the red was shrinking. "They're retreating," said quietly. "They're actually retreating." Nodded, but her expression remained grim. They've lost their ground forces, but they still have the fleet. She was right. Above Earth, hundreds of ships still orbited. They could glass the entire planet if they wanted, destroy every city, kill every human. "We need to take the fight to them," said. In Seoul, Master Sergeant received the order she had been waiting for. "Secure the landing zone. We're going up." She looked at her surviving soldiers. They were exhausted, wounded, covered in alien blood, but they were alive, and they had won. "You heard the general said, we're not done yet." The first phase of humanity's counterattack was complete. The aliens had come to conquer a helpless world. Instead, they had discovered something terrifying. Humans didn't just fight to survive. They fought to win. High Commander stood on the bridge of the eternal victory and watched his invasion die. His screens showed impossible images: soldiers retreating, burning on alien soil, bodies lying in human streets. In 47 conquests, he had never lost a single ground battle. Today, he had lost all of them. "How is this possible?" he whispered. His second officer had no answer. The young's 4 eyes were wide with fear. "Commander, reports are coming in from all continents. Our forces are being destroyed everywhere. The humans, they're not behaving like any species we've encountered." Stared at the planet below. He had studied humans for years. He knew their history, the wars, the violence, the endless conflicts among themselves. He had assumed this meant they were weak, divided, easy to conquer. He had been catastrophically wrong. The violence wasn't weakness, it was practice. Humans had spent their entire existence learning how to kill. They had developed thousands of ways to destroy each other. And now, for the first time, they had turned all that knowledge against a common enemy. "Order the remaining ground forces to retreat," commanded. "Pull them back to orbit." "Commander, that would mean abandoning." "I know what it means," snapped. "Do it." But even as he gave the order, his tactical display showed something that stopped his heart. Ships were launching from Earth's surface, human ships. "That's impossible," said. "Their space technology is primitive. They shouldn't be able to." A cruiser exploded on the screen. Then another. Then a third. Commander O gripped the controls of her ship and smiled. The vessel was called Hope. It was one of 12 ships humanity had been building in secret for the past 30 years. Officially, they didn't exist. Unofficially, they were humanity's last resort, ships designed specifically to fight alien invaders. No one had ever expected to use them. Now, Hope was leading an attack on an alien fleet. "All ships stay in formation," ordered. "Target their command vessels first, make them blind." Her crew of 50 worked in perfect coordination. They were all volunteers. They had all known this mission might be one way. None of them had hesitated. Technical Sergeant Hand sat at the engineering station, monitoring the alien shields. She was 26 years old, a genius with technology, and absolutely terrified. But she kept working. "Commander, I've found something," reported. "Their shields are designed for energy weapons. They're not calibrated for kinetic impacts." Understood immediately. They expect laser fire, not bullets. She ordered the fleet to switch weapons. Instead of energy beams, they fired solid projectiles. Thousands of metal slugs traveling at incredible speeds. The shields, designed for a different kind of warfare, struggled to stop them. More alien ships exploded. High Commander watched his fleet dying and felt something he had never experienced before. Despair. "Sir, the humans are launching boarding parties," reported. "They're attempting to board the Eternal Victory." Blinked boarding, they want to board us. In all of history, no enemy had ever boarded a ship. The idea was absurd. Their ships were massive, well-defended, filled with armed soldiers. Boarding was suicide. But humans was learning, didn't care about suicide. Lieutenant led the boarding team through the alien ship's outer hull. They had entered through a maintenance hatch that they hadn't bothered to defend. Why would they? No sane species would try to board a ship this way. Was 30 years old. He had lost his entire family to a disease that had no cure. The military had become his family, and now his family was asking him to do something impossible. He would not fail them. "Move fast," he told his team. "We have 15 minutes before they seal this section." The corridors of the ship were wide and tall, designed for beings much larger than humans. Decorative panels covered the walls. Everything was clean, organized, ceremonial. No blast doors, observed. No defensive positions. They never expected anyone to get this far. They met their first soldiers in a large chamber that seemed to be some kind of gathering hall. The aliens were armed and ready, their 4 arms holding weapons that could vaporize a human instantly. Didn't hesitate, he charged. The aliens expected the small human to run. They expected fear. They expected behavior that made sense. Screamed and ran directly at them, firing his weapon with one hand and throwing a grenade with the other. The grenade exploded among the alien soldiers. In the chaos, his team attacked from multiple directions. They used knives, fists, anything they could find. A soldier grabbed his arm. The grip was strong enough to crush bone, felt the pain but didn't stop. He pulled his sidearm with his other hand and fired point-blank into the alien's face. The alien fell, kept moving. His arm was broken, he didn't care. The team fought through 3 more chambers. They lost soldiers, good soldiers, brave soldiers. Each death made the survivors fight harder. Commander received updates from the boarding teams. 5 teams had entered ships, 3 were still fighting, 2 had gone silent. "We need to reach the bridge," told her crew. "If we can take the command ship, we can end this." The Hope took a direct hit from a weapon. Half the bridge exploded, was thrown against the wall, her ribs cracking on impact. She stood up anyway. "Status report," she demanded. "Engines at 50%, weapons offline, shields failing." Looked at the tactical display. The eternal victory was close, so close. "Prepare to ram," she ordered. Her crew didn't hesitate. They knew what she was asking. They did it anyway. The Hope accelerated toward the alien flagship. High Commander saw the human ship coming directly at him. His tactical officer screamed warnings. His crew tried to maneuver away. Too late. The Hope struck the eternal victory like a fist. Both ships shuddered. Metal screamed. And then humans poured through the breach. Led the charge. His team had linked up with the survivors from the Hope. They were wounded, exhausted, and running low on ammunition. They didn't stop. They fought through engineering, through medical bays, through barracks filled with panicking alien soldiers. Watched on his screens as his ship fell, section by section. His soldiers, trained for easy victories, didn't know how to handle an enemy that refused to die. "Why won't they stop?" asked, his voice breaking. "Why do they keep fighting?" Finally understood. Because they have nothing to lose, because they would rather die than surrender. He opened a channel to the Dominion, to the home worlds that had sent him to conquer this small blue planet. "This is High Commander," he said. "The humans are not what we believed. They are not primitive. They are not weak. They are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Do not send more forces. Do not attempt another conquest." He paused as explosions shook his ship. "They cannot be conquered. They can only be destroyed. And if we try to destroy them, I believe they will take us down with them." The bridge door exploded inward. Commander stood in the smoking doorway, her uniform torn, her face bloody, her broken ribs screaming with every breath. Behind her stood a handful of survivors, humans who had fought through an entire alien warship with nothing but determination and rage. Looked at the small human female who had destroyed his fleet, invaded his ship, and shattered everything he believed about the universe. "I am Commander O," she said. "You are now my prisoner." Had no words. For the first time in his long life, he had met something he could not understand. Humans. And they terrified him. It was massive, a sphere floating in empty space, large enough to hold representatives from 1,000 species. Light from distant stars filtered through crystalline walls. Platforms rose and fell silently, carrying beings of every shape and size to their assigned positions. 40 species had sent representatives. Some were ancient, their civilizations stretching back millions of years. Some were young, still learning their place in the galaxy. All of them had received the same message. They had been defeated by a primitive world called Earth. Ambassador Nam stood on the central platform, surrounded by beings that should not exist. Creatures of light and shadow, giants with bodies of living stone, things that floated and things that crawled and things that description. She was 63 years old. She had spent her entire career in diplomacy, negotiating between nations, solving problems with words instead of weapons. She had never imagined that someday she would speak for all of humanity. But here she was, the council's speaker, a being that appeared as a pillar of golden flame, addressed the chamber. "We have gathered to discuss the incident at Sol 3, the planet called Earth. The Dominion attempted standard pacification protocols. They failed. We must understand why." A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed footage from the battle, human jets destroying, soldiers fighting in the streets of Sol, Commander leading her crew through the eternal victory. The assembled species watched in silence. When the footage ended, the speaker turned to, "You are the human representative. Explain your species." Took a deep breath. She thought about Lieutenant Colonel, who had organized Earth's defense without hesitation. She thought about Captain, who had found the weaknesses in alien technology. She thought about Sergeant Major, who had fought with a broken arm. She thought about Private, who had helped trick an entire alien fleet. She thought about Commander, who had rammed her ship into an enemy flagship because victory mattered more than survival. "You want to understand humans," said. Her voice was calm, measured, the voice of a diplomat, but underneath there was steel. "I will try to explain." She gestured and new images appeared, not of battle but of history, human history. "We have fought each other since before we could write. We developed weapons before we developed medicine. We killed millions of our own kind in wars over land, over religion, over ideas. We are violent, aggressive, and dangerous." The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. This was not what they expected. "But that violence is not random," continued. "We don't kill because we enjoy it. We kill because we refuse to give up. We fight because surrender is worse than death. We destroy because we would rather have nothing than let someone else take what is ours." She pointed to the footage of Corporal Minu, covered in alien blood, standing over the body of a soldier twice his size. This soldier was 22 years old. He had never killed anyone before that day. The alien he faced was stronger, better armed, better trained. By every logical measure, the human should have run. He should have hidden. He should have survived. She paused. Instead, he attacked, because humans don't calculate odds. We don't measure probability. When we're cornered, we fight. And we keep fighting until we win or we die. A being of pure energy, one of the oldest members of the council, spoke. "This is inefficient. This is irrational. This is what we are," interrupted. "You have conquered thousands of species by being stronger, by being more advanced, by following protocols that have worked for millions of years, and every species you've conquered has followed predictable patterns. They fight until the odds are against them, and then they surrender." She smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Humans don't do that. We don't surrender because the odds are against us. We fight harder. We innovate. We sacrifice ourselves for each other. We do things that make no logical sense because sometimes the only way to win is to be crazy enough to try. The chamber was silent. Representatives looked at each other, at the footage still playing, at the small human female who had just told them their entire understanding of the universe was wrong. The speaker finally spoke. "What do you want?" "A seat at this council," said immediately. "Recognition as an equal species, and an understanding Earth is not a world to be conquered. Any species that tries will face what the faced. We will not negotiate. We will not surrender. We will fight until there's nothing left to fight with, and then we will fight some more." "And if we refuse?" another representative asked. His expression didn't change. "We captured the eternal victory intact. We have technology. We have prisoners. We have already begun reverse engineering their ships, their weapons, their shields." She let that sink in. "In 1 generation, we will have our own fleet. In 2, we will have an empire. You can accept us as allies now, or you can face us as enemies later. The choice is yours." The voting was unanimous. Humanity received their seat on the Galactic Council. Full recognition, full rights, full respect. After the session, the ancient energy being approached privately. "I have observed the rise and fall of many species," it said. "I have seen conquerors and conquered, empires and rebellions, wars that lasted, but I have never seen anything like your species." "Is that a compliment?" asked. "It is an observation. You are dangerous. Perhaps the most dangerous species this galaxy has ever produced, not because of your strength or your technology, but because you simply refuse to accept defeat." Nodded. "We call it spite. When someone tells us we can't do something, we do it anyway just to prove them wrong." "That is terrifying." "Yes," agreed, "it is." In the days that followed, species across the galaxy updated their records on Earth. The Dominion, humiliated and weakened, from 50 systems to avoid any conflict with humanity. Other aggressive species suddenly became peaceful when human ships appeared. The new classification for Earth spread quickly. Do not engage. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The destroyed cities were rebuilt. The dead were mourned. The heroes were honored. Lieutenant Colonel retired from the military. He spent his remaining years teaching young officers about the Battle of First Contact. His students called him the Old Man. He called them the future. Captain became the head of Earth's new Space Defense Force. She spent her career making sure humanity would never be surprised again. When she finally retired, the fleet had grown from 12 ships to 12,000. Sergeant Major never fully recovered from his injuries. His arm never worked right again. But he continued training soldiers until the day he died, always reminding them that technology meant nothing without the will to fight. Private became a diplomat, following in ambassador's footsteps. She spent her life building relationships with alien species, showing them that humans could be friends as well as fighters. Corporal Menu, now General Menu, commanded Earth's first interstellar expedition. He led humans to new worlds, new challenges, new opportunities. And whenever he encountered a species that thought humans were weak, he smiled and told them about the day he killed his first alien with a combat knife. Commander didn't survive her injuries from the Battle of First Contact. She died 3 days after capturing High Commander, her body finally giving out from the damage it had sustained. Her last words were simple: "Did we win?" When they told her yes, she smiled and closed her eyes. A statue of Now stands in Seoul at the center of the plaza where the battle began. The inscription reads, "She taught the stars to fear us." And across the galaxy, species that had once dismissed Earth as a primitive world learned a new truth. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the most advanced. But they were the most stubborn. And sometimes that was enough. In the great archives of the Galactic Council, the entry for Earth was updated one final time. Species human. Classification, do not engage. Notes, they cannot be conquered, they cannot be intimidated, they cannot be reasoned with when threatened. Approach with caution, approach with respect, or do not approach at all. The universe had been warned. Humanity was here. And they were just getting started.